Subversive Ustads, the women performers. Who were these women who were part of the entertainment industry as we call today, 200 years back? Do you and I know them? We don't. Unfortunately, we have no history. We have no records of the women performers who ruled for almost, if not 400 years, at least 200 years. Wives and baijis are the terms which are not used in a respectful manner as of today. The Davayavs were performers, singers and dancers. What does Google tell us today if you try and Google the word Davayav? It tells you a prostitute. Who put that text on Google and Wikipedia for each one of us and the future generations to read? It was one of us. What made us write that? Did you and I see a Davayav ever? No, we did not. What do we know of the Davayavs? What Bollywood has taught us. Bollywood has shown us stories of Davayavs. Now, do we use Bollywood as a history chapter for everything that we learn? We don't. It's a TRP, business, money-making medium of entertainment. It will use a story and present it in a manner which it thinks right will sell tickets. Does that become your base of learning history? Not for any other subject that I know of, except for Davayavs. Bollywood today is your history chapter for what and who a Davayav is. With this statement itself, I would say that how erroneous is the whole concept in your mind of who were the Davayavs. So when I say this, I have to also give you an alternative that, okay, so who were the Davayavs then? Who were these women? These glamorous women who, people aspired for. They were the film stars of their time. There were no films, there was no multimedia, there was no recordings. If you had to be entertained, somebody had to physically sit and sing in front of you or dance in front of you. We are talking about 200 years back. Today you get all your music looped into your mobile phones, your gadgets. You don't need the physical presence of an artist. But we needed the physical presence of artists 200 years back. You cannot blame the artist for the time that they lived in. The Davayavs performed physically in front of an audience. So what did they perform? They performed ghazal, they performed dadra, they performed thumri, they performed khayal, they performed kathak. All these art forms are there today. They're all our classical art forms. But then why are these women missing from history? You and I, if we talk about the history of Kathak, there is no mention of a woman. Where were these Ustads in our performance art history? Who tried to take them away from the recorded facts? We have a whole lot of facts about how the Ustads, generally the male performers, and how good they were. We have stories of how wonderfully a particular Ustad performed a certain line of a ghazal, how well it was emoted for the audiences. But if the same is done by a woman, why is the gaze different? There is a reason why I've come dressed like this to talk about the devayas. Because the moment you see a woman dressed in a finery, you cease to think that that woman has a mind and that the woman has ideas which she wants to share. She suddenly becomes an object of desire. And that is the error which became in history for especially the women performers. Now if we see history, who wrote history? Unfortunately, women never wrote histories. It was the men. So if I am dressed like this today and I'm performing, but probably the men sitting in the audience would think, oh, how lovely, wonderful eyes, how graceful, she walks gracefully, she's beautiful. Unfortunately, that gets recorded, documented in history. The woman never wrote history. So if I don't write my history of saying that it took me 12 years of 8 hours of practice every day to be able to dance today, to be able to get the rag right, the tal right, the movements right, you never know my history. And that is what has happened when we talk about the devayas. None of the women, very few, marginally, very few women wrote. Rest everything is a patriarchal viewpoint of putting the woman in her place. Interestingly, why was the devaya made to be the bad woman for historical purposes? She threatened patriarchy. And she threatened patriarchy in a manner which they were worried of the social structure. How did she threaten? Let's get to this, the social structure which forced us to believe that the devayas were bad women. She was an independent woman who was earning. She managed her own finances. We have the British records, especially of the Awadh region and Lucknow region that I went through. The devayas were the highest taxpayers. Next came on the dwellers. So now these were women who were the highest taxpayers. And then there was a scholar who interestingly told me that they were the highest taxpayers when they kept 2 books. So one was the book which was the actual earning, and the other was a book which was the earnings which they showed to the government. So imagine the wealth that these women were earning. Secondly, these women were not confined to the social structure. The first thing that when you want to control a woman, is you control the sexuality of a woman. You put social bindings on it. The woman is no longer free. Today, if we speak about sexuality and desire of a woman, the woman is a bad woman. She's not supposed to talk about these things. You talk about sexuality and desire of a man, that is good. So we are living in a society where to cast these women bad made the women of the house look good. She threatened everything, because if every woman copied and became independent and asked for, sexual freedom, God forbid, what would happen to the society? The women were supposed to be in the house, well-tamed, looking after house and structure. Now come to another thing. There are a lot of things which I've been questioned a lot of times, and I, say in those terms is, now come to another thing that, these women were supposed to be prostitutes. I'm going to be negating that for you. So tell me one thing that, as an artist, anyone who has ever done any classical music or art form, it takes 12 years at the minimum to be able to perfect rag, tal, lay, movement, everything. what are the years that you practice an art in? Your prime. What is the prime? From say about 14 years to 24 years. Now, if the women were supposed to be only prostitutes, were they fools to spend say, 8 hours every day practicing an art? To try and get the rag right, to try and get the tal right, to try and get the movement right? Where does this judgment come from? They were practicing. Just because they were independent women, it's very easy to cast aspersion on their character. Secondly, when we talk about the repertoire that they sang or danced, what I did was, like I said, amor, romance. That was the Riti Kal of Hindi Sahitya, which is our Hindi literature is divided into different periods. So what is Riti Kal? It's the period of romance. The Tawayafs and the Baijis lived in those times. So the time in those times, these was the poetry written. This was what they were presenting. What is so wrong? Why should the Tawayafs be asked to perform bhakti poetry when they are not living in bhakti kal, they are living in Riti Kal? Also, where have we come that, a dalliance or a romance between a man and a woman suddenly becomes wrong, and the dalliance between a human and a god is right? So somewhere we are sitting on a judgment on our own texts when it is a woman and a male performer. So the male performers of the 200 to 400 years back, we call them Ustads. The women performers of the same time period, we call them Nachne Gaane Wale, Naach girls. Is that correct? You have to think this. Today we have the film stars. They are equivalent to the Tawayafs of the earlier times. They are entertainers. They entertain you. There might be half of the country might be in love with a certain film star and aspire to, be in her presence. Does that mean that, she has sexual gratification for half the country? You understand how bizarre it is? The Tawayafs were same. People aspired, they were the unreachable performers. They were the highest slot of performers available. And if I may use the term in today's time, they charged a bomb for their performances. So there were very few people who could even reach the door of the Tawayaf. So a woman who was at the finest artist, who sang the finest, danced the finest, brought the art form alive, kept it alive for years to come, is today in your memory and my memory a bad woman. How do we change that? We question these things. We question things till we don't question things vis-a-vis gender. We will not reach a stage where we call the women Ustads as equivalent to the men performers. Why do we do that? Why do we think that patriarchy is giving us the right to cast aspersion on whatever a woman is doing? Now the art says, as an artist I know that, if I performed Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo, my art says that every person sitting in the audience should imbibe that rasa and be transported into a world where he or she feels that it is being sung for them. That is my art. Years are spent practicing it so that the moment we perform, the audience feels that. But does that woman who's performing that, does she anyway indicate that, okay, look here, it's a signal for a sexual dalliance? No, it is not. It is an art that is being performed. It is a character which is being created. Where is this whole aspect coming from, which has been passed on to us by history? There are a lot of interesting aspects that come in. There are very few women who have written about their lives. There is a Tawayaf from Hyderabad. In one of her letters which were written to her mother, she clearly states that I do not wish to get married. I don't want to be part of a harem. I am happy being in the court of the Nawab, performing, dancing. She ran a school for 300 students who learned dance and music in that school. Now, this is one of the rare histories that we have of a woman who's written. So now look at the story that is given to us from Bollywood. Oh, that poor wretched woman who was bought and sold for money, who was forced to dance, who will only find her salvation when she marries a good man. That is the only way that she would find salvation, and she should give up her dance and music because that is bad. Now this is what we have been fed. Cut to it, the story of Mahalaka Baichanda, who writes, I have no desire to be married. At that point of time, historically, whether it's right or wrong, she had 3 lovers. She was happy. Now, a woman like that who's running a center for 300 girls, has all the money in the world, she is at par with royalty because she's given the title of Umrah in the court of Nawab of Hyderabad. A woman who plays polo, we are talking about 18th century, who plays polo, who goes for boat rides, who dances, who sings. Do you think she'll find salvation in the Bollywood style of getting married to a man and then be living happily ever after? This, till we don't question and we don't ask these things, we will never find answers. We have to stop being fed what has been fed to suit, if I may say, patriarchy, and to give at every point of time, to give women that confined space of expression. That confined space has to be broken. The woman has to express. And why I call the wives the subversive Ustads, because they broke that boundary. We don't remember them for this, because we do not see it from that perspective. Till 12 years back, till I waded into this uncharted seas of the world of the wives and the women performers, I frankly did not even think of this. Because I live in a different world, where we are almost equal, if I may not say that. Today, Manjari Chaturvedi may, for her Kathak performances, and would be given national awards. Why can't we give a Zarina Begum a national award? Why can't we make her part of a performance art history? Why can't we name a road after her? Why can't we have awards in the name of the wives? Why? These are the things that need to be changed. And we need to give the women performers, the subversive Ustads as I call them, their rightful place in history. Thank you.